Today is Saturday, February 8th, 2025. And yesterday, I didn't even realize the market was down because Robinhood and Palantir have been absolutely carrying my portfolio. And not just yesterday, but these past years, Robinhood and Palantir have been carrying me. So Friday, I was up 1.14% and a little bit more overnight on a day where the NASDAQ was actually down 1.26% and a little bit more after hours. And so far year to date, the NASDAQ is pretty flat, only up about 1.45%. And of course, for my portfolio, I am up about 23.77%. Yesterday was also the day where I finally hit 150K in my portfolio, which is absolutely crazy because I believe back in November 2024 was my first time hitting six figures, which is 100K in any account ever. Like, I've never had six figures in a bank account or brokerage account ever in my life until November 2024 when I hit 100K. And today we're barely into February 2025 and I'm already up another 50K, which is just mind-blowing. If we look at this past year, I'm up almost 100K just in 12 months. And of course, all time, it is just parabolic right now. Now, of course, this past week was very, very busy with a lot of companies reporting earnings, specifically Palantir, which just started popping off. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But there's a lot of things I have to cover in this video, and I'm going to try my best to remember everything. But I do have a cash secured put on WYNN, and I believe they're reporting earnings next week. And basically with that cash secured put, I'm fine either way. If WYNN goes down on earnings and I end up buying some shares or end up rolling out my contract a little bit more, I'm fine with that. I have 50 shares, I believe, already. I think WYNN overall just has a decent future. But also, of course, if they pop off after earnings and start soaring, then my put option that I sold will start losing value, so I'll make money either way. Now, Palantir, I did sell a covered call, the 130 strike March 14th. That one is not the only covered call on Palantir that I've sold this week, believe it or not. And I'll get into that in just a moment, but I also have two more cash secured puts on Honest. I believe they report earnings next month in March. I'm also very confident in that, and I'll touch on that a little bit more, but I think Honest has a bright future. And the setup that I'm seeing on the charts, I think Honest could hit $10 this year, honestly. No pun intended. But if we take a look at my all-time gains, Robinhood has hit 444% gains. Nike, unfortunately, is down 12%, but I do think Nike is an opportunity here, even though I believe it's around $69 right now. And looking at the charts, it could hit 65, but I still think Nike is a very good buy here for the future. And Palantir, of course, 523% for me. If we take a look at my equity, I am now almost at 85K for Robinhood, which is just mind-blowing because my Nike position used to be about half of my Robinhood position, and my Palantir position used to be roughly half of my Nike position. But because Robinhood and Palantir have been soaring like crazy recently, Palantir almost caught up to where my Nike position is. And of course, Nike is no longer about half of my Robinhood position. Now, in terms of whether or not I'm going to sell covered calls on Robinhood, because I believe next week they have earnings and they've been soaring like crazy this year, so it might be a good time to sell covered calls. You guys might be thinking, but in my opinion, Robinhood is in a similar moment to where Palantir was back when Palantir was around 75, 80-ish. So a lot of people, of course, were thinking, man, Palantir has had a great run. It's starting to get a little bit richly valued. And I don't know how much more upside there is. And if you look at my older videos, you guys will know that I was avoiding putting a price target, if I can talk, on Palantir because I was saying Palantir could either break 100 or it could crash all the way back down to 50. And I'm just not going to touch it for now because I don't know which outcome is going to happen. But of course, it ended up going up and breaking 100. The way I see Robinhood right now is it could go back down to around maybe $40. But at the same time, it could start shooting up to $85 per share. And the reason why I pick 85 is because that was the previous all-time high. So just getting back up to where Robinhood was during the 2021 meme stock frenzy, the crypto frenzy, all that, Robinhood was $85 per share, and I think Robinhood can either go back down to 40, like I said, or it could start shooting all the way up to $85 per share. And if that happens, my Robinhood position, I want to say it's going to break six figures, because right now it's around 84K. And if it starts shooting up to 85, then yeah, I think my Robinhood position is going to be six figures, which is just, it's mind blowing. So yeah, that's my answer. I'm going to avoid selling covered calls on Robinhood. I don't know if I'm going to buy puts on it. And of course, buying a small $200 put option to hedge my Robinhood portfolio might be a smart idea, considering how big my Robinhood position alone is. I just don't really want to mess with it. Like, this whole time, Robinhood has treated me very well, so I want to keep every single share of Robinhood I have, all 1,500 of it. You know, if I sell a covered call now and it ends up getting called away and I only have 1,400, I'm going to be a little bit sad. So yeah, that's my answer, guys. My next price target on Robinhood is $85, and I'm not going to sell covered calls on it. Now, when it comes to Palantir, obviously it's had an amazing year. And after selling all these covered calls, I want to say my average cost is around $16, which is even lower now. And almost my entire position of Palantir, which is around 22 grand, is straight profit, right? 18,500 of my 22,000 is straight profit. Now, the reason why I picked a 130 strike is because I do not want to get rid of any Palantir shares at all. I want to keep Palantir for the long term. I want to be a long-term investor. And any of you guys that have seen my previous videos will know that I'm very hesitant to sell covered calls. And also, when a whole bunch of people are either shorting a stock or selling covered calls on it, it usually means it's going to go up just to wipe out all those trades. Palantir, for me personally, is the perfect example stock of why I don't sell covered calls, but also why covered calls are really good. Buying Palantir at around $17 a share is not the first time I've messed around with Palantir stock. I also had some back when they IPO'd, and I was trading it in and out around 2021 when it had that first initial wave up before that huge crash around 2023. I did have some covered calls on Palantir, and I want to say it got called away at around $65 a share, somewhere around the high before that crash. I didn't participate in that crash at all, which is amazing. I'm not a market guru at timing, but I did end up timing Palantir very well. I also noticed I have very good timing with AMD, but I don't want to waste too much time talking about AMD. So as you guys know, I did have an old Palantir covered call around January 24th, where I sold it for about $100 and then ended up closing it. Like I said, I am not a market guru at timing, but it just seems like I have very good timing when it comes to Palantir. And of course, I also made a deposit. I also purchased a bunch of WYNN recently. I think I covered it in a past video. And of course, I told you guys I sold some covered calls on Honest. Also sold a cash secured put on WYNN. But then I also sold another covered call on Palantir February 4th for 115 strike. And I ended up closing that one on the same day, because I've noticed with covered calls and options, whenever you're selling an option and you're around the 30% mark in terms of gains, or 50% mark where you're keeping a good chunk of the premium, I noticed that the stock tends to react around those levels. And I'm assuming it's because whenever people are making 30% of the premium or 50% of the premium, a lot of people are closing their trades, which helps support the stock or create resistance, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to get too technical. I'm not going to act like I'm a genius at that, but that's just something that I've noticed. And those are specific marks where I like to close out those covered calls. So around $45 was almost half of where I sold the covered call, so I ended up just closing it, and it was in one day, which was crazy. It was a pretty decent gain for one day, so that's why I ended up closing it. And of course, I forgot to mention EA also had earnings, and I bought it right before earnings and it ended up going up, so I am happy about that. And I don't want to get caught up with EA too much, but basically I bought EA right before earnings because I thought it was very suspicious that they had some report that ended up crashing the stock right before earnings, but then on earnings the stock ended up soaring. So I just found that a little bit suspicious, which is why I bought it right before earnings, just to speculate a little bit that it was going to have a nice pump up. I did sell another covered call on Palantir, and I believe this was earnings because the premium was so fat, around $300. And then the very next day, of course, it went all the way down to almost $200. So that was another reason why I closed that trade out. I got to keep almost 90 bucks of it, and I thought that was okay. And like I said, I don't want to sell my Palantir shares, so I tend to close my trades a little bit early. But then right after that, on February 6th, Palantir ended up going up again. I sold another covered call for $100, basically 99 after Robinhood's stupid hidden fees. I keep telling them it's not a big deal, just show it on the transaction history, but whatever. And I ended up rolling out my put that I have on WYNN just to collect a little bit more premium, because WYNN has been falling a little bit. And of course, I got to collect some more dividends and buy some more Nike stock, but I ended up rolling out my Palantir call just because it went up even more, and I just wanted to collect that extra premium. So I did collect an extra $170 from rolling out my Palantir shares. I personally didn't think Palantir would hit 110, which is why I originally sold my covered call at 110 before closing that one. But here Palantir is at 110 closing out on Friday. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but I don't think Palantir can hit 130. Now, obviously, now that I've said that, Palantir is probably going to hit 130, but if it does, man, I know I said it in an older video, if Palantir hits 100, I'll probably be okay with selling it. But now that it is at 110 and I'm not okay selling it, it's like, man, am I going to say that it's okay if I sell Palantir at 130, but then when it ends up getting called away, I feel bad about it, whatever. But I don't know. Like, at this point, I'm just going to enjoy my covered call premiums with Palantir and just see where the stock takes me. Now, with that being said, I just want to briefly go over my new price targets that I somewhat see on most of my stocks. My new price target in Robinhood is $85. Nike, I still have my price target at $100, even though it looks like we're, in the short term, it could hit 65. So if any of you guys buy Nike at 68 and it goes down to 65, do not yell at me. This is not financial advice. I didn't tell you to buy it. But yes, I do think Nike in the short term could tag 65, but eventually I do think it's a $100 stock. So I'm just going to keep buying it, keep collecting my dividends, whatever. And when it comes to Palantir, there is a very big gap down below 100, around the 90-80 range. So I am going to put my price target somewhere in the 80 range. So I'm just going to say 85. I used to avoid this stock all the time, but I do think that Palantir could see a short-term correction down to 85, and I'll get to collect all my covered call premium. Now that I said that, it'll probably tag 130, but it's whatever. Pepsi, I still think it's a $175 stock, almost a 4% dividend if I'm not mistaken. So once I get some more money in, I'll probably buy more Pepsi. Tesla, I'm not even going to try. TLT, I'm not even going to try. PayPal is actually interesting because I thought they were going to go up on earnings, but the stock started going back down to 77, and it seems like the stock has been at 77 for like 3 years now. It probably has, I don't know. But I do think PayPal is a $100 stock. I want to own more PayPal, but there's just so many other stocks that I have to put money in. Yeah, unfortunately, PayPal is just going to be like my middle child there. SoFi, I still think it's a $20 stock. Honest, I actually think Honest could hit $10 per share this year. And the setup that I'm seeing on the charts, it seems like it's hovering around $6 before earnings on March. And most likely after earnings, it will start having that next leg up going towards $10 per share. So most likely I will be buying more Honest. Now, when it comes to WYNN, I think WYNN is a $100 stock, but I'm not really sure what the reaction on earnings is going to be. So if it ends up going down and I end up being forced to buy those shares because I did sell a cash secured put, then I'm fine with it. But if it ends up shooting up to 100 on earnings, I'm also cool with that, obviously. For anybody that doesn't know, REPX is actually my small cap oil play, my speculative oil play. It does pay a dividend, almost 5%, I believe. But yeah, I do think REPX could see $60 per share. I don't know when, but that's just what I see on the charts. So, but basically, the stocks that I will most likely buy more of is Honest, WYNN, Nike, and REPX. So those are like the 4 stocks that I will most likely put money towards on my next paycheck. But yeah, guys, that is not financial advice, obviously.